Thanks for downloading this episode from Teachers Talk Radio. You can find the full schedule and listen back to all our shows at ttradio.org. Enjoy the podcast.
Good morning. It is Wednesday the 30th of July and it is finally the summer holidays. Oh, I can't believe it. You are listening to the morning break with, as you can see, just Liz this morning. Kate is off having summer holiday adventures, but she will be back in 2 weeks' time. So we'll look forward to seeing her then. Joining me today is Sue Eastlake, an English teacher of 30 years and who I met 20 years ago when she trained me to be a teacher during my PGCE. So Sue, like many others, you actually left the classroom 3 years ago and you are the inspiration for our topic today, which is life after teaching. Is the grass greener?
Yes.
End of show.
End of show.
Job done.
That was a short one, wasn't it? Should we go get a coffee?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, seriously, tell us about your career before you left teaching. Where did you start?
I started way back in the 90s. So I began as a teacher in 1995, which just sounds unbelievable now. I worked at the time at what was considered quite a tough school. They used to say if you could work anywhere. Things were very different. I can remember as a NQT, as we were called then, starting, and there were no schemes of work. I got given some schemes of work just to go away and write. But despite all that, and my memory is it was a tough couple of years in one sense. And I thought, oh, I'm working so hard. It's not like the job it is today. It's not like the job it is today at all.
Even for me 20 years ago, like I think I thought I worked hard then, but not in comparison to now. The expectations are they're so high. And I mean, COVID as well is the thing that kind of absolutely accelerated it. And we put so many things in place during COVID that was supposed to be temporary, which then stayed and just added to workloads. And it is. I mean, it's unrecognisable from what it was.
I mean, when I began,
even 20 years ago,
it was just, you literally had a blackboard. I had a rollerboard.
I had one of those. I loved it.
So I had a black and a white bit as well. And there literally was the board. There wasn't even an overhead projector back then. No emails. It seems hilarious now to think about a time when you had a desk without a computer on it. But it was just your desk. No emails to constantly be reminded of things that you had to do. And I think also, of course, no death by PowerPoint, which I'm as guilty, or when I was a teacher, I was as guilty as the next person, in the sense that PowerPoints became my go-to and my comfort blanket. Everything had to be on a PowerPoint. And therefore planning was very different, and planning just did not take the time it takes today. Even though when I first started, we didn't even type up our worksheets, we wrote them out, which obviously is quite hilarious now.
Well, I remember when you trained me, and the resources and the schemes of work at the school where I trained, there were folders full of handwritten worksheets that were photocopied, and your OHP sheets as well that you reused again and again and again. But somehow that wasn't as much work.
No, and I loved an OHP because
Me too.
you faced your students. You could write notes and stuff on them, and you were facing your students as you did it. And I know I've spoken to several teachers that were around in the days of OHPs, and quite a lot of them say, oh yeah, I loved an OHP. But yes, with the onset of IT and all these wonderful things that were meant to make teaching easier, don't get me wrong, it has in some ways. Google this, get a clip of this to play. It has in some respects, because your lessons can in theory be so much more exciting. And
absolutely.
But because of that, because of the expectation that your lessons need to be better now, because you have all this, the pressure is heaped on.
That's exactly it. And I think, you know, PowerPoints are great. I think you were saying about that reliance on PowerPoints. I feel it myself as well, because it kind of holds the spine of your lesson together. But I think as well, they've become necessary in the sense of, because you're trying to save money on resources and photocopying and things like that, to put a lot of your instructions on your board, rather in the old days you would have just handed those out on worksheets and things like that. So it's all part of the streamlining as well. But yet definitely it's a comfort blanket. But like you say, that takes time, and as new fads come in as well, and obviously we've got like dual coding at the moment, which actually is incredibly useful, but it's then having the images on the PowerPoints, which you then have to think about really carefully and coordinate with. You know, everything takes time and thought, doesn't it? And suddenly planning for a 45-minute lesson takes you 45 minutes or longer. And so suddenly then your working hours double, because the time it takes to create a lesson. And it, you know, ultimately, is this the thing that's driving people out? Is it what drove you out?
Well, there were a number of different things for me. Planning took, started to take far too long, because I started to sort of worry about every potential aspect of a lesson. And I would have, umpteen slides for this, if this happened, and then if this went wrong, I could do this. And even you just mentioned dual coding. I was my big thing, as you know, was the 5-a-day starter thing that I used to do, which was a brilliant way to engage the students. I mean, obviously I didn't invent the concept, but my students used to love that, the idea of seeing an image and working out how it was connected to a text. And I used to build in rewards to it. So it was a real attention grabber, but creating one of those for every single lesson was incredibly time consuming, just even one slide like that. So yeah, the planning began to, I suppose to some extent, I began to get a little bit obsessed with the planning. And as a result, I didn't perhaps stay on top of my marking as much as I should have done, because I preferred planning as well. I think
we all do, don't we? That's the fun bit. I think if we were honest with ourselves about and everybody, we would be. I would spend more of my time planning. I love that. I love the resourcing. I love the coming up with creative ideas and things like that. But like you say, the other things get in the way. The admin, the marking, the paperwork, the meetings, all of that white noise outside of the classroom. And most of those things have a deadline and a pressing and things like that. And sometimes you're forced to roll with what you've already got, or the choices that you are up until 1 o'clock in the morning adjusting your resources and things, because you've got to make it fit somewhere. And then you do become overwhelmed and you become tired, and that then breeds resentment. And it's awful, actually, because obviously we've got this phrase in teaching now, haven't we, this quality first teaching, which I think is probably a rather overused phrase now, but the principle is right, because you've got to get it right in the classroom first. And yet somehow teaching has become this environment where planning ends up lowest on your list and resourcing ends up lowest on your list, below communication, emails, marking. Marking can dominate your time, can't it? And that becomes overwhelming.
And I was never a particularly fast marker either, to be honest. Even after umpteen years, I still didn't mark very fast. And I used to get quite frustrated with myself, actually, but I'd like to think it was because I was being thorough.
But I think it's the nature of the subject as well with English, because it's not, it's grey, isn't it? It's not right or wrong. It's a lot of subjective things. I mean, you and I have sat in enough moderation meetings where everybody's coming at it with a different perspective, and some people are saying, oh no, I think that's confident, I think that's perceptive, no, I think that's just clear. And it's just like, oh, for goodness, no wonder it takes such a long time, because you eventually end up with that inner, is it this, is it that, maybe it is,
actually.
And so you overthink it quite a lot of the time, and again, that adds to the time. So therefore you become overwhelmed. And maybe some people are a bit more efficient about that, aren't they?
Yes.
I do think in teaching there are people who have really good boundaries. And I think
we used
those
to work
are
with something like that, didn't we?
We did. She was excellent.
He was amazing. Put his stopwatch on and off he'd go and click each time.
And I think if you've got boundaries in teaching and you stick to those boundaries, you probably are happier in the job. And I think that those are people who will stay doing it because they are able to compartmentalize it. And I just think if you overthink it, and you and I are textbook overthinkers, I think it can overwhelm. You mentioned COVID. COVID, because obviously I know you, I know COVID just preceded just a little bit your decision to leave. Did COVID play a part in your decision to go?
Well, I'd been unhappy before COVID. I've been unhappy for a few years. But what kept me working was I loved who I worked with, including you. But there was a lovely supportive network in our department at that particular time. And then if you did have a bad lesson or you were upset, you knew you weren't alone. I can remember particularly one lesson where I got upset on a Friday, period 6 with a year 11 class. And I just sort of put my head down and tried to fight the tears. And the person we were just talking about, the smart worker, came in and said, oh, are you okay? Okay. And then came back and went, can I make you a cup of tea? And you always knew that if you went into the office and broke down and cried, someone would take care of you. And so I thought what kept me going in the job was that knowledge that you can't necessarily get colleagues like this everywhere. And then COVID happened. And I think I've said to you before, ironically, I kind of almost loved the job more in COVID because everyone pulled together.
Yeah.
You know, there was this real sort of sense of we're in this, we're fighting together. We were briefly loved by the public. Briefly.
Oh, for about 5 minutes.
Briefly, they said, oh my God, teachers, what they put up with. And then they all hated us because we weren't in the classroom doing our job. So there was that sense of, oh yes, I actually I do want to be a teacher. And I can remember when we went back, and only year 10 were allowed back at that time, and it was such a bizarre time because I literally taught 4 year 10s in this huge classroom, and I had to clean the desks in between, and it was that strangely enough was a time I loved it because there was just this pulling together. But it was the post-COVID effect that finally drove me out, I think, because work did increase because of, as you said earlier, all the things they put in place for COVID kept going.
Yeah.
So the contact with parents, because parents had been able to contact us and kids been able to contact us during COVID, that just kept going. And just the expectation, I found that more and more we were hiding in our classrooms. We weren't getting our break and our lunch times. Our particular school at that time then did a split lunchtime, which didn't particularly help. And I just didn't see anyone. And I thought, this is what's kept me, the people is what's kept me in this job. I mean, don't get me wrong, it wasn't I hated children or anything, but it was predominantly colleagues that kept me in the job. And then I just thought, what's the point with my colleagues anymore?
That's exactly
and then there was a final straw. It was the most ridiculous thing that finally pushed me over the edge, and it was to do with a new scheme of work. But I think it was just waiting for one last thing. And then that was
the straw that broke the camel's back or donkey's back or whatever the phrase is. I think COVID, I think it was the second lockdown where we went online for COVID that I actually I know this is controversial, but I loved it. I was on top of my housework because I had lunch at home, so I was doing washing and everything, and I was actually managing to teach lessons without being interrupted, which was delightful. It was, I actually quite enjoyed it. I think I was in a minority on that, but it was. I don't know.
I enjoyed it. I think the hardest part was because we were in secondary school and our IT facilities were set up that we couldn't see the students. Do you recall?
It was like not all schools did this.
Primary schools, you know, they could see their students, but we couldn't see them. So obviously they weren't necessarily there. And you were also just talking to this darkness and just hoping for the best, that they hadn't just logged in and cleared off, which I know quite a lot of them did. But the best thing was, the minute you had a difficult student, I can remember one of my year 10 students who was quite hard work, bizarrely did turn up to the lesson one day and asked a quite difficult question, which I won't repeat on here. And I just kind of went, which, you know, was great. And so, yeah, like
there is
you,
no live mute.
Yeah.
It does not happen.
But obviously, I did miss the being with people. And that's the weird thing about teaching. You do need your colleagues, you need your support network. And that it's a strange job, teaching, because it's actually very isolated. You're with all these people all day, every day, but it's an incredibly isolating job. And so you have to have a support network. And strangely enough, I felt that because we did pull together in COVID, we had that, be it on the end of a Zoom call or whatever. And that's why I finally broke with the job in the end, when we were back in the classroom. And I just thought, I don't even feel that I see my colleagues anymore. What's the point? And
your colleagues are, I think a lot of people are sustained by their colleagues. I think ultimately you realise, not everyone's as lucky as perhaps we have been with the colleagues that we've worked with. You know, you read lots of horror stories online of people working in kind of very toxic work environments in their immediate environment, where you hear about people being very competitive about things, or like gatekeeping resources and things like that. And we didn't work in a department like that. People were very
generous.
Very, very generous, and with their time as well. A lot of the time, you know, everyone would have an open door if you came in, and you know, people would chat, and it was really, really nice. And I also felt, like you said, if you had an emotional moment, you never felt judged for having that moment at all. And I think that's really worth its weight in gold when you have an environment like that. And it is what keeps a lot of people going, because it does sustain you, having that close-knit. And you're terrified of going somewhere else where that doesn't exist.
Exactly.
And certainly when I left the last place that we worked together, I was very nervous about coming somewhere new and finding your people. But you still do, strangely. And I do think teaching is a profession where maybe you find your people a little bit quicker, because it's almost like that survival. You need to have, you know, there's loads of memes and reels and things like that online out there about your teacher besties. And how, you know, someone who you could look through the classroom window at and just pull a face at, and they would understand exactly what your experiences were. And that's, again, it's what sustains us. It's what keeps us going.
Over 7,500 primary schools are already using Capel Primary to boost confidence in teaching foundation subjects. Our expert-created curriculum planning, lessons and CPD are here to support and upskill you, whether you're a subject lead or classroom teacher. If you've got knowledge gaps in art, music, computing or beyond, we've got you covered. Head to capelprimary.com and empower your teaching today.
Need a smarter way to teach? Wish your lessons had more impact? Eduflix.com. Stream educational films for teachers and students in or out of the classroom. Keep students engaged. No ads. No distractions. Try it free for 30 days at eduflix.com/try. Use code TTR. Get 50% off all orders made before June 1st. Eduflix.com.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading.
Sue, have you subscribed to our weekly newsletter yet?
I haven't, but it's on my list of things to do.
So it's called sound bites and insights, and it's delivered to 10,000 educators a week. It contains a curated selection of 4 standout TTR shows from the week, exclusive discounts and exclusive offers from our sponsors. Sign up on our website at ttradio.org/newsletter. This show is also brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. I realised that I've recently read one, the responsive coaching book. So have a look there. It's well worth a read. Really, really good. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Also, if you're looking for another great educational podcast, check out Chalk and Talk with Anna Stocky. Anna is a passionate advocate for evidence-based math education for students of all ages. On her podcast, she talks about everything from effective teaching methods and how-to guides for teaching, everything. Math facts to tips for evaluating research shows claims, and she brings on top-notch guests, educators, researchers, policymakers, and discusses issues that directly impact teachers and students. Chalk and Talk is for anyone interested in education. Find it wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, right. So you are one of many in the education system who has, there's lots of people who are wavering, lots of people who've jumped ship. You were looking up some statistics, weren't you, prior to this?
Yeah.
And actually, when you see it in black and white, it's quite striking to understand the numbers that are, I use this term quite colloquially when I talk to people about education, but when I actually saw it in black and white, I realised how accurate it was. The profession is hemorrhaging teachers. It is. The statistics are absolutely abysmal, and the policymakers don't seem to be getting it right in terms of stopping it from happening. Nobody seems to really be engaging with what the real issues are or asking anybody. That's what I find really, really bizarre. Like, I have found it reassuring because ICT Mr. P, hasn't he? He's been having conversations with the Secretary of State for Education, and he's been to the DFE a couple of times. So I feel like there are some opinions of people in the education system being sought, but not enough.
No.
So, when you did your research, what did you find out?
Well, obviously you can just go on Google and find this stuff out, but the statistics aren't right up to date, unfortunately. So they're currently talking about 23-24, but they are talking about 40,000 teachers leaving the profession in that time. And we hear numbers all the time, don't we, in our life because of the 24-hour news and so on. But that's a huge number. Let's be honest. To just go, I can't do this anymore. And I'm sure some of them are driven by perhaps wanting to make more money, but without a doubt, most of them, if you go on any teaching site, leaving teaching site that exists, the big drive is they just can't do it anymore. They can't cope with it anymore. And the very fact that all these sites exist speaks volumes in itself. All you have to do is Facebook. I know it's us oldies that are on Facebook, but as
the students remind us all the time. Facebook, miss.
But go onto Facebook and just type in "leaving teaching," and just umpteen sites come up that are available for you to join to provide advice. So someone's felt the need to create those, and the thousands of members. I think you actually sent me
the Adventures After Teaching, which is very, very large, and I went to actually look at how many members there were, and I thought, for some reason in my head I had the figure of 5,000. That's what I had in my head. It's actually 24.6 thousand members, or 27.6, maybe it was 27.6. It was significantly more.
And that's one leaving teaching site.
That exactly, and I think it's quite a big one, but nonetheless, and you just think, crikey, that's a lot of people, and those are just people who use social media. They're just the people who have actually joined these sites. That's not a true reflection, probably, of the number of people that are looking to go. And obviously not everybody in that group is going to be actively looking. Maybe some people are just thinking about it, but judging by the posts, there are a lot of people who are actively looking for. It makes me think of do you remember the poem This Room by Imtiaz Darka, and where it's like nobody's looking for the door, everyone's looking for any way out, and that's like the window, the roof, like anything. And that's what Adventures After Tea, like reading the posts on there, it just makes me think, oh my gosh, everyone's just any way out. People are looking for it. But the key things that come up again and again and again that are preventing people from doing it is holidays, losing the holidays, pay, because obviously you go from, particularly if you're an experienced teacher, going down to an entry level salary is quite a big drop. And you know, if you've got a mortgage or if you've got a family, that's quite significant, especially if you're the main wage earner. That's quite it's quite a difficult thing to think about. So it's preventing people. And I think reading a lot of the stories as well, people are finding it hard, because even though you are incredibly skilled actually as a teacher, you have so many hats on all of the time, you do so many things, it's quite hard to jump and find you know, people who've got office experience, for example. You know, it's really hard to go up against other people who've worked in offices.
And you're convinced you can't do anything else as well. That's the biggest problem. You become very institutionalized, and certainly I felt that way. And that's what some of these sites are all about, where they will provide, you know, boot camps and support for CVs to say to somebody, look, you've got all these skills, but you might need a bit of guidance as to how to actually write about them and represent them, because you don't think you can do these things, but actually your skill in managing a classroom, and your skill in organising data, and your skill in running a trip, they are all things that are completely relevant for the outside world. It's just you can't see that because you can only see it in an educational capacity.
And I think a very high number of people in education suffer from imposter syndrome.
Absolutely.
Even doing your own job, you feel like a fraud. A lot of the time.
I think that was another thing that drove me out, to be honest. Just this constant feeling of whatever I did wasn't good enough. And I'm not having a go at all the powers that be in schools for that. That was, well, I mean, obviously it feeds into it, but I just constantly berated myself because I wasn't good enough at my job. And because I wasn't staying on top of it, I was another bit of evidence that I wasn't good enough at my job. But I can also, you know, someone where we work just left a few days ago, is retired, and part of her leaving speech really hit home for me, which was, she said, you know, that people work so hard in the school and they were fantastic teachers, but for the last couple of years she just hadn't felt that she was up to scratch and it was time to go. And there is this sense all the time that you might not be good enough,
even though you give your all to it.
Even though you give your all to it, absolutely.
It's not a profession that I think it's very easy to go half cocked at. I don't think. I think
I would love to have done. And I used to get told quite a lot. Would just, you know, my husband would sometimes say, just don't do it. Don't do it. Why are you working at this time of night? Don't do it. And I'll be like, well, I can't not do it. Well, yes, you can. You just don't do it. No, it doesn't work like that.
It's just like I've got 180 people who I'm going to see tomorrow who are dependent on me having done this.
And so I also do a half job of it. You know, if I'm going to plan a lesson, I can't plan a lesson which I'm going to stand up in front of a class and just think, oh, this is just dreadful. You know, I can't bear that feeling. I mean, there's been times when lessons have gone wrong, and inevitably, and this was the other thing that drove my planning, inevitably, the lessons that I felt were dire, a lot of the time, were ones that I'd get off the system and I think I haven't got time to faff about with that. And then I try and do it and think, oh, God, this is just rubbish, because I couldn't make it work for me. And so that's why the planning took time. And then of course you berate yourself.
You do. And I think you feel, and because you often have 30 critical eyes on you as well. And I think students these days are much more vocal about their own opinions of you as a teacher, which I think in the early days, that wasn't so much a thing. Like, obviously you'd get the occasional annoyed or angry or dissatisfied one who would tell you what they felt. But I feel like these days, I hear the phrase a lot, well, so-and-so's not a good teacher, quite a lot coming out of students' mouths. And I'm like, who are you to make a judgment about that? Like, that's because you don't enjoy their lessons doesn't necessarily mean they're not a good teacher. And I think quite often enjoyment and being a good teacher are conflated, and they're not necessarily the same thing at all. And so being, even not with your colleagues or by management or anything like that, you feel like you're being scrutinized by young people all the time as well. And that comes with its own pressures, and it's hard. And I think we often focus on the negatives more than the positives a lot of the time, because even though the negatives probably were a very minimal part of your day and you actually had lots of positivity, you would go home and you'd focus on those negative things, and those are the things that you'd lose sleep over, and those are the things that would you use the phrase Sunday scaries. Though that's the thing that would power you, that negativity, which is really, really wrong. But somehow I think it's kind of a shared thing within education that we all focus so heavily on that negativity. And I've got an ECT who I'm mentoring next year, and I've given her advice, being like the biggest hypocrite in the world, but I've told her, you need to have a notebook in your desk drawer, and you need to write down all the nice things that happen. You need to write them down, the nice comments that students make, the things that have like lifted you in a day, you write those down, and then when you have a bad day, you need to read them, because you need to
do that, Miss Webb.
No, that's what I mean. I'm a total hypocrite. And I should do that. Like, I keep all the thank you cards and all of those things that mean so much. And obviously you pin them up on your board because they're your little reminders. And you and I run the mock trial competition, and we have like the creme de la creme of students like doing that competition who are just absolute dreams. And so you remember the impact that you have in that. So you do have these moments, but those are the ones you just are so quick to forget about. And again, it's that feeling like there's a constant stream of negativity that then again will power people's decisions to leave ultimately. Because it is the Sunday scaries. We haven't actually talked about what you do now. What do you do now,
and you're just talking about the bar mock competition. I thought this is probably going to throw people completely, because we're still talking about working together, and yet I've left teaching, which doesn't seem to correlate. So
let's explain. Let's put some context.
Well, obviously we do still work together, because after that initial straw that broke the donkey camel's back, I did decide I decided I was going to go, and I initially did think, that's it, I just have to jack it in, because the thing about leaving teaching is, if you're going to go and get a job outside of teaching, the resignation dates make that quite difficult. So I had to think ahead, and I was going to go to the end of the year, but that meant resigning by the end of May. And I just thought, well, I'm going to go even without anything, because even if I don't have anything for a while, I will be free to get a job in the real world.
As and when they come up.
So I made that decision. I was supported in that decision, I should stress, and we haven't got on to necessarily the finances behind why people stay in teaching. I know you briefly mentioned it, but I was supported in that decision in terms of I'm not the main earner in the household, and if I was, I don't think, well, I wouldn't have been free to make that decision. So that was the choice I made. I was going to go. And then the universe had other plans, as I tend to sum it up.
The universe also aided by me.
So basically, when we worked together at our last school, I was very connected with reading, and I used to work very closely with the librarian at that school. And that's always been my interest. I can remember the head of department at the time saying, "Oh, you're our reading person, Sue," and I was a bit like, am I right? Okay. But that was where my interest lay. And so a job came up in the school we now work at, in the library. And I spoke to the librarian I worked with at our last school, and she said, you could do that. And I went, oh, I'm not a proper librarian. But she said, yeah, you could do that. Easy. So that's how it all came about. Initially, there was some talk of me trying to do half teaching, half library. And I stood firm and said, no, I've got to leave teaching to know if I miss it or not. And so that's what I now do. I now work in the library at the school when you are teaching. But, and if we go all the way back in our chat to why people want to leave, a lot of the time it's not because they can't bear teaching. They like interacting with students. They like
the best bit of the day.
Yeah,
that is the best bit.
Exactly. And what they don't like is all the admin and all the data drops and unpleasant interaction with parents, you know. That's the bit they don't like. Well, see, that's what I've now got. I've got the best bits. I've got the positive interaction with students. I have lovely parents write to me and say, thank you so much for encouraging such and such with the reading. I get to plan, because we do library lessons, as you know, creative, I'd like to think fun.
They are.
Lessons.
I love them.
And it's worth going all out in planning those lessons because I repeat them. So it's not just, you know, when you used to do those cut up little card activities that would take you half an hour and then it would get done in 5 minutes. And you
textbook rate.
So my activities get used and used and used. And you know, I have a lot of quizzes and competitions, as you also know, and I have the best bits. So
students
without
love
a doubt,
to the library.
Yeah, and without a doubt, I've sort of landed on my feet in that sense. But what have I lost? I've lost money. I've lost quite a large proportion of money, and I was able to do that. But not everybody is as fortunate as that.
And was it worth it, do you think?
Oh, my life is so different, so different. I do not work at home. I don't work at home anymore. Sometimes I will sit down with the TV on, I'll pull out the laptop to do something that I might think, oh, I'm just going to get that done. Let's say the newsletter is due and I think to myself, oh, I didn't quite finish that write-up. I'll sit and do that. Or I've got a little mini guillotine at home. I might just cut up some cards that I forgot to get done at work, but do that in front of the TV. But these are minor things, and that's a choice I'm still making. It's not an absolute, I must get this done, I must stay up till 1 a.m. There's none of that at all. And as for Sunday Scaries, just not a thing anymore, completely gone. And the stupid thing about that, and I'm a big, I follow a lady on Instagram called Miss Moore. She's actually, what's her actual title? I can't remember. Something about Miss Moore anyway. That's awful, isn't it? I should be able to just...
Was it Miss Moore No More?
Miss Moore No More, that's it. And she did a thing recently on Sunday Scaries, and I truly thought that was just me. I thought, I'm just made that way. I get anxious before I go back to work. So it doesn't matter what job I'm in, I will get anxious going back to work because that's the way I'm made. Because all I've ever done is being a teacher. I literally went from school to uni to school. But I've realised that isn't a thing. You know, there are people out there that don't get worked up on a Sunday night. And that has just revolutionised my life, quite frankly.
Because also as well, you were 3 days a week as a teacher and you've gone 5 days a week as a librarian. Yeah. So obviously in terms of your working at, like, your contact working hours, that's more, isn't it? You're working 5 days a week as opposed to 3 days a week, but even that's been worth it.
Oh, absolutely. Less work. I said that from the very onset. I was a little bit nervous about that, going 3 days to 5 days, but my son was older, so that wasn't such a thing. That was another thing that drove me to stay on 3 days, because 2 days a week I could take him to school and collect him, rather than shove him in a breakfast club. And he'd got a bit older. He was capable of being on his own a bit more. And so I thought, well, I can do 5 days. And that was another reason why I waited, I think, to say I'm going to leave teaching, because he was a bit older and he could stand on his own 2 feet a bit more. But at the moment I started the job, even actually, if I'm truly honest, not really knowing what I was doing, I could straight away say, this is so much less work than just a 3-day-a-week teacher.
And that's
Yeah.
So we're going to have an influx of people applying to be school librarians now. That's going to be what people do. They it's just like, this is the job for me. I still get the holidays.
I think being a librarian again is what you make it. I'm very lucky. I've got a teaching background, so I do a lot of library lessons, and the students come in for scheduled library lessons, and I run those lessons. And it's nice actually to give the teachers a break while that's happening. But you can't expect that of a librarian. You know, if you've not got a teaching background, it's not fair to just say to all librarians, right, no, you should be taking these classes now.
No.
So it's just fortunate that I can do that, and it's the best bit of the job, the planning, yes, the creativity, and the running a fun session. And the difference also is there's no pressure on those lessons. You know, I don't have to get them to pass exams. You know, no one is coming in with that kind of, what are you doing to get them through these exams idea.
Yeah.
And also, and this is the irony of it all, I used to despise being observed. I used to get so worked up about observations, really getting a tiz about those as well, because I would just think, oh, I'm just going to be rubbish. They're going to say I'm rubbish. But I've probably been observed more than ever being
nobody talks about it like that.
Yeah, because I've got so many teachers that come in and hang about. I mean, sometimes they go as well, but yeah, so more teachers than ever have watched me teach. But it doesn't
make you nervous in the same way.
No, not at all.
So do you think it's the issue then was with the expectation and with the pressure and the standards? Because ultimately, if someone's in the back of your classroom, someone's in the back of your classroom. So do you think it's the expectations that were the issue?
Yeah, I think so. And also that sense of, you knew that you weren't always doing the best you could because there were too many things to balance with the teaching, just the teaching alone. Whereas I now know that I've got the time to give those lessons thought and consideration. And actually, I say that I do the same lesson with the class for the week, but if it's not working, I've got the chance to go, oh, actually, I'm going to change that. I'm going to and do it again. And
also, you're selling yourself a bit short there as well, because because you know the classes and you get to know them, you do cater for different needs in different classes. You know, you look at the makeup of a class and you think, well, they're actually not going to cope with that activity, so you know, actually you are doing the quality first teaching that all the rest of us should be spending the time doing, and just
what do I have
under everything else.
What do I have that so many teachers don't have? Time.
And that's the key thing, isn't it? I think that's just what everybody seems to be missing. There's so much focus on pay rises and things like that, and I don't know if it's controversial to say this, but I would have time over a pay increase 100%. I would rather, you know, lose 3 or 4 periods off my timetable, so the equivalent of a class, so therefore a set of planning, a set of marking, a set of admin emails, everything that go with that class, rather than a pay rise, because time is far more valuable. And I think that's the thing that would keep people in it. And I think the pay rises have been incredibly divisive as well. There's a lot of focus on recruitment, and I understand why that is. It's because loads of people are leaving, but people wouldn't leave if it was made more attractive as a profession. You know, you always see in the comment section, don't you? It's like, oh, well, stop banging on about it. You get 13 weeks holiday. All right, you do it. You do it. Put your money where your mouth is. Fine. There's loads of vacancies. Come join. I give you a week.
I think there was a head, wasn't there, that sent out, I don't know whether it was just a social media myth, but apparently a head had sent out in a primary school a letter to parents saying, you know, if you wish to sign on to the teacher training,
join us.
Please do. Because there'd been some complaints in the community or something along those lines.
Oh, well, you know, the comments boards and Facebook groups and all that sort of thing. There's a lot of very, very vocal people about it. But yeah, I just think it is. It is such a difficult job. But yeah, time and like I was saying, the pay increases have been quite divisive. So I remember at one point, one of the pay rises, wasn't it something like 11.2% pay rise for those entering the profession, and then 2.5% for people at the top end of the scale? And it's like, hold on a minute, I've been loyal.
Yeah.
I've been here for a really long time.
It's like being a loyal
sucking my
customer,
guts
isn't
out.
it? So
Yeah.
loyal customers don't get rewarded, new customers do. It's the same
Yeah.
sort of idea, really. But we are talking about teaching children here. You know, it's quite important to value the experience. But I think that's the biggest problem. Experience isn't valued. Schools have to watch their budgets to such an extent that, you know, experienced teachers, off you go, you're too expensive.
And are encouraged to go as well. In some places that we've worked, we've seen kind of an active movement to push people who are close to retirement, like because they're too expensive. And you think, oh, that's very divisive. And I get it, like school budgets are being constricted. So it all comes down to funding. I think on previous shows, we've talked about the fact that so many issues in education stem back to the fact that we do not have sufficient funding. Because if we had sufficient funding as well, we would be able to reduce teachers' timetables. There are schools who are going to the 4-day week, aren't there, for teachers?
That's 1 year up.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, obviously it comes at quite a huge expense, but that's got to be the way forward, hasn't it? You know, teachers on a 4-day week, but you know, school's still open 5 days. Everybody's day at home doing admin is a different day, but that's got to be better for well-being. It's got, you know, giving people time. If I had a day's run at my admin, which technically I do because I'm part-time and I work 4 days a week, but I'm not paid for that 5th day. I shouldn't, I mean, obviously I ultimately do. I end up marking, I end up emailing. I'm still on my emails on my day off. I shouldn't be. People say,
I remember that.
Shouldn't be on your emails on your day off. Well, if I'm not, I'm going to come into 70 emails when I come in on Thursday morning. And I don't really want that. That's not good for my well-being either. I'd rather keep on top of it on my day off. But yeah, I'm not being paid for that. So actually moving to that model, again, would be such a... It's got to be the way forward, but there's no funding. And schools can't afford it. And so that's why it won't happen. There's always money for other things, I think, but not education.
Yeah. What's that phrase you used to say? There's always money for war. But
yeah, that's it.
The one statistic I did find out was that the pay of experienced teachers is 12% lower in real terms than obviously new teachers coming in, because the minimum salary at £30,000 was set, came in 2023 for a new teacher. But in comparison, an experienced teacher's salary is not creeping up
at the same pace.
Yeah.
And
sorry, of course, a job does have to be attractive. It does, but for those in it who are loyal and know what they're doing,
it's. And that's the thing.
Nice.
A lot of our job, you know, we are training the new people coming in. So the less of us there are, you know, what's the quality? And even with the new teachers, didn't we find a statistic that said
they're leaving?
So within the first year, so retention within the first year was 89.7%. So that means 1 in 10 new teachers are leaving in the first year. That's insane.
Yeah.
Like that. Can you imagine in workplaces, you know, having 10% of your staff turning, maybe it is like that, maybe we don't know enough about private industry, but that just seems a startlingly high number for people to leave within the first year. And that's not just moving to another job, obviously, that's leaving the profession entirely.
That's the big thing, isn't it? Because you know, maybe in the real world they move on to another area of work, whereas people are just saying, that's it, I'm not even going to stay in this game. And I think for some of them, they actually make the choice to go before they get too trapped. That's the thing. Because you do get used to the wage and you do get used to the holidays, and then when you, as you've already mentioned, when you do then have a family, you think this fits with my family. And it's a funny job for that, because I kept going because I was allowed to be part-time, and you know, some jobs you can't be. And I had the holidays with my boy, and we never had to think about childcare. It never had to be a discussion. Well, you take this week off, I'll take this week off, and let's see if you've got someone else to help you, because not everybody does. So it was never a thing. It was never something that had to be considered. And so once you're in that hamster wheel, if you like, of this fits my life, you keep going and keep going. The irony is with the holidays, there's no denying it, they're fantastic. You can't, I mean, look at me, I'm very fortunate now. I'm in this job, and
sorry,
I get holidays too. I was just going to say, you just disappeared for a minute there. I thought I'd bored you away.
Technical issues, sorry.
Over 7,500 primary schools are already using Kapow Primary to boost confidence in teaching foundation subjects. Our expert-created curriculum planning, lessons and CPD are here to support and upskill you, whether you're a subject lead or classroom teacher. If you've got knowledge gaps in art, music, computing or beyond, we've got you covered. Head to kapowprimary.com and empower your teaching today.
Need a smarter way to teach? Wish your lessons had more impact? Eduflix.com. Stream educational films for teachers and students in or out of the classroom. Keep students engaged. No ads, no distractions. Try it free for 30 days at eduflix.com/try. Use code TTR. Get 50% off all orders made before June 1st. Eduflix.com.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading.
But I'm very fortunate. I have these holidays now, but you get into that kind of role of feeling that the holidays are the best bit. But actually, many people say when they leave teaching, if they weren't so pressurized, if they weren't so dragged down with the term, they don't need the holidays. You know, you don't need that desperate time with your family, because you can give them more of yourself all year.
Yeah.
You can come home in the evening, you can do stuff with your child.
Yeah.
Whereas I can remember, and I still feel a bit sad, and I know you have to do this because your son is significantly younger than mine, but I can still remember getting in, wanting to spend time with him, but thinking, just eat quickly, let's bath, oh, quick story, all right, story, quickly, I've got work to do, come on, go to sleep, you know. And that does make me a bit sad that I felt this pressure to be like that. But then I would think, but I've got holidays, I can make up for it all in the holidays. But it's how you balance that. Do you actually need a job where you can give more of yourself all the time and not wait for the holidays? That's the thing.
Yeah, and it's because I am definitely in that trapped bit, because my son is so young. He's only just started school last September. And the price of childcare and holidays and things like that, which again, that's another avenue of problems in society that we need to, not just for teaching, but just generally, which is why, again, school ends up being viewed as childcare. Rather than an educational facility where students come to learn. I feel kind of trapped in that cycle now. Because I want to be around for him. And I'm very lucky in the situation that I have now, in that I can take him to school in the morning, and his school is close enough to our school that I can go at 3:00 and I can pick him up at the end of the day, and I can be there for him. And that is so important to me, to be able to do that. And I am around for him in the holidays. But you do pay for it elsewhere, you know, after he's gone to bed, and I'm absolutely exhausted by that point in the day, because I've been non-stop since 6:00 in the morning, and then you're trying to find the discipline to work again. And it would just be nice not to not to work at that pace all the time, because I think about working to retirement, and I think about the fact that, you know, can I still be doing this at 60? No. I can't and they keep talking about upping the retirement age as well. And I just think, oh my gosh, I can't do it. They'll carry me out in a box. So who knows? Who knows? But I really admire people who have left, who have been brave enough. And again, that's the narrative on a lot of the groups where you see people who've said, I did it. You know, I've got a job elsewhere, I'm leaving, I can't. Or people who did as you've done, and handed their notice in and have said, I've had enough, I can't do it anymore. You know, this is, I've just handed in my notice, I haven't got anything to go to, hopefully I'll find something. You are also seeing lots of stories though where people are saying, I thought I would find something and I haven't found anything, I'm starting to feel worried, I'm going to start doing supply. Some people find happiness in supply teaching, don't they?
Yeah, and actually it's always a go-to. I mean, once you're a teacher, you're a teacher. And I've got some very lovely colleagues around me, including you, who do say to me when I say, oh, what, you know, when I was a teacher, and they'll go, you're still a teacher. Because obviously I can still teach. But you've got that to fall back on, and tutoring. And there's actually quite a lot of successful ex-classroom teachers who have gone into tutoring and have said, oh my goodness, this is wonderful, you know, because I tutor in the time that fits for me. Some of them are tutoring kids in evenings because that works for them, but some are actually becoming tutors for students that are not in school anymore, that's other arrangements are made for. But again, it still goes back to that fear of taking the leap though, doesn't it? Because that's not a regular salary. You know, you're branching out, you don't have the reliability of a salary. With supply, you don't have the reliability of being paid during the holidays. You don't know how often that supply is going to come in. And of course, a lot of schools, because it's a budget decision, have made the choice to have cover supervisors who they pay appallingly, let's be honest. But those people are therefore in school to do cover. And there's a definite benefit to that because those cover supervisors know the students so much better, which helps them. So yes,
I think if you're going to do it, that's probably a good way to do it.
Yeah,
because you can build relationships.
Bad salary, terrible salary.
Yeah, well, like TAs and LSAs, isn't it? You know, such a valuable resource that we couldn't do without, really. We rely so heavily on them, and yet paid absolutely appallingly. And that just obviously that's not an individual school decision, that's a nationwide decision. It's perfectly acceptable apparently to
and there are quite a lot of ex-teachers doing that. You will sometimes have a chat with a TA and you will find out that they are actually a teacher, but they made the choice to step back. I mean, we again both worked with a phenomenal lady years ago. I'm going to say her name, Heather.
She was brilliant,
fantastic. And she trained to be a teacher. She would have been an amazing teacher, but she made the choice it wasn't for her. And she went all out as a TA, did so much more than she should have done, above and beyond, as they say.
And had such an impact as well on the students that she worked with. And they loved her. She worked with really tricky students, didn't she? But the grades she got out some of those students because she cared and she did put so much time and energy into it. She was brilliant.
So it's a difficult decision to make in terms of taking the leap, because there are so many different things to consider, and you know, just paying your mortgage is a massive factor in that. And if you're on your own, so much harder. I think cost of living is a big part of that, because certainly a librarian that used to that we both used to know, that worked at the school we worked at, she was on her own. She was a divorced mum with 2 children, but she managed on her librarian salary. I couldn't manage on my librarian salary. You know, so cost of living is a huge factor for people right now as well.
And that I guess it's difficult to comment on private industry, isn't it? But even private industry doesn't seem to be keeping up with that either. You know, just dare I use the word exploitation? Like, it feels like there's a lot of cheap labour going on all over the place, where people are doing really important jobs and just not being financially rewarded for it.
One last thing I was just going to briefly mention was, if people do make the leap, is they may find themselves, and they're perfectly normal if they do, they may find themselves grieving a little bit for the identity that they've left behind, because I think that is a key thing. You identify completely. You're not just it's not just a job. It's so much more than just a job. And so if you do make that leap, you could well find yourself thinking, who am I now? What's my purpose? Because I certainly went through a period of time where I was in that, and that's even staying within an education.
And I almost think that doesn't help, because I think you probably still, if you were completely out of education, you probably feel that you'd made a clear break with it, and so saying I used to be a teacher might feel more natural. I think because you still work within an educational establishment, maybe that's what makes you feel that way. Maybe I don't know, I'm speculating. We've talked for nearly an hour, Sue. I mean,
that's quite common with us though, isn't it?
Yeah. We're very good at it. But it's just gone by really, really quickly. I say that to all the guests, but it does. Once you're kind of in the flow of a conversation, it flies by. Thank you so much for coming and talking about it. Please come back again and talk about something else, maybe reading or something like that. I don't know. Absolutely
year of reading, 2026. So
there we go.
Yeah.
We need to push it. So you need to come back on then, and we need to talk about how do we get more people to read, because that's a question that I get asked a lot. Promoting, and you do amazing things at school to promote reading, and the library is such a vibrant place, and you've made it that way. So you can give advice to others about how to do the same thing. And it isn't just the fairy lights. The fairy lights are beautiful, but it isn't just the fairy lights that do it.
Fairy light obsession in the library.
It's beautiful. It's a lovely space. I can't even begin to tell you. Right, before we close, I'm just going to have another word from our sponsors very, very quickly. So if you haven't already, subscribe to our weekly newsletter. It's called Sound Bites and Insights. It's delivered to 10,000 educators a week. It contains a curated selection of 4 standout TTR shows from the week, exclusive discounts, exclusive offers from our sponsors. Sign up on our website at ttradio.org/newsletter. And this show has been brought to you today in partnership with John Catt Educational, who are publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. If you use the code JCTTR2425, you can get 20% off your order. Thank you so much, Sue. It's been a pleasure.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.